EU Parliament calls for China sanctions over Uyghur persecution.
Here's a summary of the article.
China has faced international condemnation for rounding up an estimated 1 million Uyghurs and other mostly Muslim ethnic minorities in internment camps in the northwestern region of Xinjiang. Beijing on Friday accused the European Parliament of hypocrisy, after a resolution called for targeted sanctions against Chinese officials over the treatment of the Uyghur minority. Members of the European Parliament said on Thursday that China's human rights record had worsened in the past year. In response to the resolution, Beijing called for the European Parliament to abandon their double standards on counterterrorism and stop interfering in China's internal affairs. MEPs had called for targeted sanctions and freeze assets, if deemed appropriate and effective, against the Chinese officials responsible for severe repression of basic rights in Xinjiang. The European Parliament had presented a Human Rights Award to the daughter of jailed Uyghur intellectual Ilham Tohti on Wednesday. Juha Ilham collected the Sakharov Prize on behalf of her father, an economics professor hailed by the parliament as a voice of moderation and reconciliation, but condemned by Beijing as terrorist.
This post received a score of 6,358, with an upvote ratio of 97%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
About time they did it. Now let's hope it'll actually have an effect on the Chinese overlords.
Surely one or a couple of bought governments will try to stop any EU-level action.
Nah, it's a nice topic to appease the masses. They just increase subsidization even further, then the sanctions, and China may even come out ahead.
LMAO sure. Fuck China's government, they will suffer for this and they deserve it for their terrorism against Christians, Muslims, and literally anyone against the CCP.
1 million people are in camps in China.
Yeah, but we need cheap stuff, don't ya see the dilemma?
Not just cheap stuff. Any stuff. iPhones aren't cheap. Computers aren't always cheap. Everything is made there. Americans used to feel the pain of international influence in the economy, but we've gotten so spoiled we won't experience friction for any reason.
Well, it's a good time to move production back to EU. We'll fuck up China exports and lower total environmental impact of EU. Everyone wins.
Production will only come back to Europe when the labor cost to make the goods is lower than the transportation cost of moving the finished goods to Europe. China will lose and someone else will win, e.g. Vietnam. Europe will barely be affected. We should be okay with paying more for products if it means better pay and livelihood for our fellow countrymen and better for the environment. We need a massive reshuffling away from the race to the bottom globalization we've had the last 50 years or so. It's going to be an adjustment, but it's far better and more sustainable in the long run.
We take a hit, the bravest of countries will put their people forward to help us settle this conundrum. Boris will pass legislation for child labour in Scotland.
The ends justify the means.
Time to #boycott China. Boycott China. Avoid Chinese products.
The world needs to unite against CCP's ethnic genocide waged on the Uyghurs and Tibetans. C. There are plenty of other ethnic minorities living in China who will be next.
I'm fine with sanctions on China, but it pisses me off that the world didn't do a damn thing when the US was just bombing away Shiites and civilians in Iraq like no tomorrow for half a decade, on the pretense that some of them might be bad fighting against the US military presence, or that it's the civilians' fault for living near that neighborhood or school. Any country that goes overboard in the name of security and peace is an asshole.
Saudi Arabia is literally committing a genocide in Yemen, and the US is supporting them rather than sanctioning them. I'm not opposed to some action against China, probably not sanctions as they've never really been proven to work, and they can have devastating effects on local populations. I'd also like some more investigation first before radical action is taken, but I wish the world police actually had some consistency about what they're doing. At least it's very clear that the US doesn't actually care about human rights, they're just scared of China as a threat to American hegemony.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.